Frustrating.
Hello.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, because what kind of women do watch this thing?
Hey man, if I could date a girl from this show, that would be great.
Welcome to the obvious one, the Young Guns. Tonight we're here to talk some NFL Divisional Round football, and I'm brokenhearted. Screw you, Tom Brady. The one time I picked for you, yes, you have a crappy offense. Your defense is trash. It's fake.
He's old, so there you go.
It's got a fake ranking of 7th out of 32. And Dak Prescott showed up. Now, he created a problem for himself, in my opinion. I don't know about you guys. He created a problem for himself because he needs this on a regular basis. Like, he balls out like this, and most of Cowboy Nation that has a common sense brain and are not brainwashed are going to question, where's this always been? Why haven't you always done this? Or something like this? Why can't you always play like this? Mm-hmm. So, congrats, Dallas. It's the only game I got wrong last week. Went 5-1. Hold your applause. I am the best one so far out of all of us. But, that can change because we got 7 games left. So, let's jump right in, gentlemen. We got.
I still want to see Cooper Rush, man. I want to see Cooper Rush start with the Cowboys.
How about the Cowboys?
We got Jacksonville at Kansas City.
Trevor Lawrence versus Patrick Mahomes. That's going to be a beautiful matchup.
What are we thinking, gentlemen?
Man, I don't know what to think of this Jags team. Are they going to show up like they did in the second half, or are they going to be garbage and crappy like they were in the first half?
Well, if they show up like they did in the first half, then we might as well just give it to Kansas City because they're not going to win if they play like that.
I can't trust the Jaguars yet. I have to pick the Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
The thing about this game for me is that you look at the Jaguars and they've had a fantastic season for what they've been doing lately, going 10-8, 9-8 regular season, now they're 10-8, making the playoffs, and you beat the Chargers by 1 point. But they've won a lot of games by one score. They found ways to win, especially toward the end of the season. And they did have a few bad losses in the regular season. I think they're a really solid team, but I think they have another year or two to go before they're really good if they keep building toward that and Trevor Lawrence keeps getting better and better. I think that they will play hard in this game and potentially have a shot to win, but it's at Arrowhead. Kansas City is a tough place to play. Patrick Mahomes has a lot more experience, and they've been playing well all season. They've had a couple of rough games toward the end of the season, but they still won those games. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to beat the Jaguars 31-28.
To Edward's point, yes, it was a second-year QB making his first playoff start, but guess what? It was the same. It'd be the same as the Chargers that won the game. I'm gonna play this one most likely safe. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs on this one. Win 42-35, and they come back from 35-7 down, like they did when they won the Super Bowl.
I'm going to pick the Chiefs, and it's going to be a 38-24 victory. I love what Trevor Lawrence did to the Chargers last Saturday. I mean, I tell you what, you can take the Chargers out of San Diego, but you can't take the San Diego out of the Chargers. That's for sure. Jaguars showed that. I mean,
I mean,
Jaguars have been a fantastic story all year, especially the last several weeks. I mean, I hated that they smacked down my Titans, but the moment that they smacked down the Titans the first time, I knew then they were going to be the team that won the AFC South.
wish I knew then what I know now. Na, 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 na.
And I thought, you know, it's going to be a beautiful future for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. So maybe they can break that threshold in the AFC because it's a tough conference because you got to go through the Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, and the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, you're not going to do it this year, obviously, but next year or the year after that and the year after that, absolutely.
And I mean, obviously, you got to remember, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, yeah, the Swami, Chris Berman, baby. Yep, no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. There we go.
I will say, I mean, you know, if somehow Jacksonville pulls this off, I wouldn't be surprised because Trevor Lawrence is known to do things like pull off these crazy upsets.
Well, here's a stat that not a lot of people really know about, but, you know, well, a lot of people know about it. Who am I kidding? But he is unbeaten on Saturdays, all time. All time. All the losses he's had in his whole career have not been on a Saturday. So if he loses this Saturday, it'll be the first time that he's lost on a Saturday in his playing career.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to sink in, folks. How cool, how powerful is that? You got a guy who's never lost on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I
So
guess we're on to the one of the biggest rivalries in all of NFL football, the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. For the third time they are playing against one another. Man, it is wonderful, man.
what do we got?
I have a feeling that the Eagles are going to choke. I don't know, man. I have a gut feeling. I don't know. Like, it's a gut that I feel like they're going to choke. I mean, they did choke against my Commanders. I'm like, we weren't a great team this year. I'm going to be honest. We were not a great team. But the Eagles did choke against us.
At this when they choked, the game didn't matter. So,
I mean, didn't they want to go 16-0? They wanted to go 16-0.
dude, going 17-0 in a regular season is overrated unless you're freaking Tom Brady in New England Patriots era.
I would love to see a team go 17-0 in the regular season and then basically go 20-0. That would be a beautiful storyline.
I'll pick the Eagles. I'll go against my gut. I'll still pick the Eagles.
Ooh, what's your final score prediction?
34-31.
Ooh. Jeffrey, birthday boy, what's your prediction?
Yeah, the funny thing is I'm kind of with Will. You know, I feel like the Eagles are going to blow the game for real. I mean, because I think they're really good, but I still don't really have a lot of faith in them right now. You know, where they're an elite team, even though they're 14-3, they've had a great year. I'm not sure yet. It's kind of just too early to say that they are, you know, an elite team. To Edward's point, they didn't start hurt for the last 2 games. That's true. He's going to be back. Part of me, you know, I picked against the Giants. I went with the Vikings. Thought, you know, even though I thought maybe the Vikings would blow it, and they did, I still picked the Vikings over the Giants. So, I mean, part of me wants to pick the Giants as well, like Will almost did, but I will pick the Eagles to beat the Giants 31-24, but I could easily see the Giants winning.
Let's see. I think it's going to be Eagles 28, Giants 21. Closer than the experts have it. I tell you what, though, that offense is really big. They are second in total yards per game in the league. The defense is pretty good. It's second in the total yards per game allowed, and the offense is third in total yards per game. I mean, that's a pretty big offense. You're going to be going up against New York or New Jersey.
The bigger question for me is not about Philly; it's about New York.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a lower than average New York team have enough juice to pull off an upset over an overrated, overranked, poor team.
Yeah, and all their wins have been one-score games. So
Can I add something to that? The NFC North was bad this year. It was bad, and they did very well. They didn't even do that well in the division. Like they dropped a game against the Lions. The Lions, I like my command. I know they beat my Commanders, but I'm not saying I've said my Commanders aren't a good team, and the Lions.
Well, yeah, the Vikings
they dropped one against the Lions and the Packers. So I'm like, how should I have faith in the Vikings?
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings got lucky.
Not picking the Giants. I should have picked the Giants.
Here's the thing, and we'll get to this more later, but the Vikings lost heavily, majorly to the overrated. We got lucky because the other team was old as crap in the first round. Dallas Cowboys, 40-3.
Yeah, I mean, they even beat the Patriots on Thanksgiving in tight fashion, but that's not a 2003 Patriots team you're talking about. So, and like that's the and same thing with the Giants. A lot of their wins have just been diddle luck. I mean, the Titans game was luck. You know, the 2-point conversion play. I mean, heck, they got lucky against the Panthers. They got lucky against the Bears. They got lucky against a bunch of has-beens in Green Bay. They got lucky against a healthy Lamar Jackson. I mean, their luck's running out eventually. I mean, they even got lucky against the Tatsets. The Tatsets.
Mm-hmm.
That's just
Jaguars lost to the Texans.
Yeah, but the Giants, man, they've been getting lucky all year. But
the Vikings did as
Barkley,
well. That's why Buck and Mike said they were overrated because they won all those games by one score. You kind of felt eventually they would lose, and they did. So it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens, man.
Right.
So Philly is stacked better on basically everything, as Edward says in the comments. More depth on both lines of scrimmage, deeper in the wide receivers. They have Jackson's former wide receiver in A.J. Brown.
He's a rebel, man. I tell you what, old A.J. Brown.
So everything in my eyes leans towards Philly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go Philadelphia 49, New York Giants 17.
Ooh.
It's not going to be close.
And onward to our next game, the Buffalo Bills
and the
Cincinnati Bengals.
This is a phenomenal game.
The shootout between Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. The Bengals.
This is a 50-50 for me. I'm going to go Buffalo since they're at home. I'm going to go Bills 49, Bengals 42. I think it'll be whoever has the ball last.
This game right here, both these teams played poor last week, and you felt like they could possibly been looking ahead.
Detail.
I think they were. To Will's point, it is at Buffalo, and that's going to help a lot. I think that this game's really going to come down to which team makes fewer mistakes. So a potential pick six or just turnovers or fourth down stops is going to make the difference because it's going to be a close game either way, I think. But I will take Buffalo to beat Cincinnati 31-28.
I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills to win a 38-35 game against the Cincinnati Bengals. The points per game, man. Wow. Buckeye Mike, your pick.
Okay. Cincinnati doesn't have an offensive line. Their defense is pretty good for Buffalo.
Mm.
Joe can create anything in the pocket, but so can Josh Allen. The defense is good enough to hold Baltimore to 17 points. Really, Cincinnati should have lost the game. Realistically, if John Harbaugh didn't convert into Jim Harbaugh like an idiot, because you don't go for it and jump over the top. You go down like the announcer said. You almost like bury your QB's head into the ground past the center's butt.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the Sam Hubbard return doesn't happen, Baltimore probably wins it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously. That being said, how can I go against Joey Burr, Joe Shiesty? The one, the only, the next GOAT in line, Joe Burrow.
The Bengal King.
As much as I go back and forth and have lost sleep over this matchup, I have to go Bengals. So I'm going to go Cincinnati 38, Buffalo 36. And now the not so big one. Dallas at San Francisco.
I don't know, man. The 49ers Cowboys is always a big playoff game anytime those two go against one another.
Here's my question. Here's my question, though.
That's what the media says.
Oh, yeah, we're not in the 90s anymore.
Will Dak Prescott from last week show up? Because if he doesn't show up and continue to have that performance on a regular basis, really, if he does not continue to show up on a regular basis, I want to stress this and clarify this to all crazy, lunatic Cowboy fans. If your QB does not continuously have that same performance, then you will just continue to experience tears in the end. Now, if Dak can ball out and have that performance again and again and again the rest of the way, then they could potentially get to the Super Bowl. Will they win it? Absolutely not. But they could get there. I don't see them getting there, but they could.
Ooh, that 49ers team is just stacked, man. They are stacked. Man. I mean, that defense, take a look at the stats on defense. They lead the league in total yards per game allowed. They lead the league in points per game allowed. They are second in the league in rushing yards per game allowed. And the passing game, so if you want to beat San Francisco, beat them with the passing game. But you got that right, Tide Guy. I agree. But final score, I'm going to let that out here in a little bit. As soon as these guys get their final scores out, Will, what's your final score for the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys?
I feel like Dak's going to get smothered. I don't know. I feel like this is just really hard for the – I don't know, man. Like, I feel like Dak will have a good game, but I feel like the defense for San Fran, they're so good. They're so freaking good, man. So I'm going to go 49ers 38, Cowboys 20. I think they'll get away from Dallas.
Birthday boy, Jeffrey, your pick, man.
Yeah, this game, I know a lot of people are instantly counting Dallas out. And I mean, I understand. I mean, they've lost so many games in the playoffs, but they were able to beat Tom Brady, and it was an impressive performance, even though Tampa Bay did not play well. So I think they're gonna have a good game. I think that they will make this a much better game than a lot of people that are expecting a 49ers blowout. And I almost want to pick them for that, but I'm gonna pick Brock Purdy to beat Dak 28-24. I think the 49ers will win, but I think the Cowboys are going to make it really interesting.
Ooh. I'll tell you
ask-
what, that Purdy Mania, man, that's going to be a 42-24 victory against the Cowboys.
So let me ask you this. Do we think it was more the Bucks being average with the oldest crap goat at quarterback position, or was it more of Dak balled out and finally showed up?
Little bit of both.
I think Dak played a really good game. I mean, some of the throws he made were really contested. They were good throws. I think the Bucks played okay on both sides of the ball. I just don't think they allowed Brady to do what he's capable of. Like we've mentioned before, he did not throw the ball deep until the game was over. So the play calling for the Bucks was not great.
I mean, like I said, I blame Todd Bowles in the end because Brady is not meant for the 2-yard dink and dunk. You don't want to have Brady in 3rd and 6. I mean,
I thought his last name was Bowles.
It's Bowles.
Oh, okay.
With that being said, Dak, in hindsight, will not have another Tampa Bay performance. I'm sorry. I love you just as much as the next guy, the guy that doesn't want to be here for some reason. But Dallas is not built to go any further. Dallas is not even built really to win a wild card game realistically. I mean, they play San Francisco in a wild card game, they get slaughtered worse than Seattle did. I'm sorry. You won the game is because you got lucky and ended up with an average Bucks team. That does, yes, to Edward's point, it doesn't know how to play call because the play call.
The Buccaneers are trash on the offensive line and the defense. I mean, if you saw some of the plays this year, everyone, if you watch the Buccaneers all year, you probably seen some highlights and they could not catch. But good Lord. I mean, good Lord.
With that being said, the 49ers defense is just incredibly amazing. It's top tier defense. That pass rush will get to Dak. The pocket will collapse, and it'll be to the point that Dak won't be able to slip out to the numbers and throw a deep ball on the run like he did with the Bucks because the Bucks defense was just slow up front. Because Nick Bosa is going to come right off the edge, do beautiful swim move, and just boom, get to Dak all night long. So I'm going to go San Francisco 45, Dallas 3.
Oh.
I would say
Dallas.
you were being generous for yourself by giving the Cowboys 3, but nah, man. Maybe
But
he
here's
should
a
get
question I
even
have
more.
about the Niners. So if whether the 49ers win the Super Bowl or not, going into the offseason of 2023, is there a quarterback controversy between Brock Purdy and Trey Lance? Because you got to remember, Trey Lance had a lot of first-round draft picks traded up for him.
Mm.
And
Trey
Brock
Lance, I think Trey Lance just never worked out in Stanford, and I think he's gone.
Yeah, they're trading away Jimmy and they're trading Trey.
You think so? What about
Yeah.
you, Jeffrey? What do you think, man?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted them to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, but that's not going to happen. I thought actually that he was completely gone after this past season, but they, he didn't go anywhere and he got benched, but they kept him. But I mean, the way Brock Purdy's playing, especially if he does lead them to the Super Bowl, and if he does win it, he's going to be the starter. And
Yeah,
Jimmy Garoppolo's gone, and more than likely Trey Lance. Now, if he loses this game, if Brock Purdy loses this game right here, then I think there is a controversy. Somewhat. I don't think it's a slam dunk necessarily that he would be the starter. I think he still would be the odds-on favorite to get the job. But if he goes far in these playoffs, he's gonna and makes the Super Bowl and wins it for sure, he'll be the starter no matter what.
So to your point, the only thing I will say is if San Francisco makes the Super Bowl and we maybe win the 54 rematch 3 years later, hey, Kyle Shanahan, don't be a stupid idiot and call the exact same gameplay that you called at the end of the Super Bowl when you were already up by 10 points. You gave away 3 freaking touchdowns. Don't be stupid anymore.
Yeah, I know, Edward, that Jimmy Garoppolo is hurt. I know that right now. I'm talking about overall. I was saying.
Well, there's
I was talking about that overall. Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback that I've wanted to be the starter the whole time. But now it's a little bit different because the way Brock Purdy's playing, and I know that Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt. I was just talking about throughout the last 2 years. It's not going to be him, even when he returns from his injury. It's going to probably be Brock Purdy.
Right. Well, gents, do you think that run out of bounds hurt his stock a little? Jimmy Garoppolo's when he ran a little bit out of bounds against the Broncos.
When was that?
It was earlier this year. If you saw on NFL Sunday Night on NBC, you'll see that the 49ers play against the Broncos this year. And at one point, Jimmy Garoppolo ran outside, and he didn't realize he was running outside the end zone.
No, that wouldn't have any. Because here's the thing. As hard as most people in general are on Jimmy G, no John Kitna. I think we can all admit that. Because who is more infamously noted for running out of the back of the end zone and not realizing it? John Kitna.
Dan Orlovsky.
That was 08 against the Vikings.
Yeah. Well, John Kitna still sucked either way. So, I mean.
So.
Yes, it was.
I think it's different when you have like a Cam Newton play where you don't pick up the ball, in the Super Bowl, but you still had great seasons overall. But people say that he's not good because of that one play. That's not the same thing as like to your point with John Kitna, he wasn't good anyway. So there's a difference between a infamous play that you did that's bad, but you were still a really good quarterback versus you had an infamous bad play, but you were bad anyway. That's worse.
So, and to your point, like, I wanted to save this for like another time, but you opened the door, which is okay. To your point with Cam didn't. I used to like Cam. I don't like Cam per se anymore because he's just old and he's not as good as he used to be, which is fine. I still like him. He's probably still a good person. He still dresses kind of weird, which when you're a pro athlete, who doesn't dress weird? I mean, Russell freaking Brick Westbrook dresses weird a lot. The reason he didn't go after that fumble is to protect himself. Mm-hmm. It's not this conspiracy that, Cam Newton gave up in the middle of the Super Bowl because he didn't go for a fumble. Well, guess what? If he had went for the fumble instead of not like he did, he probably would have been done sooner than he now is. I mean, to your point, look at the hit that he goes for that fumble. He takes a worse hit than he did against Atlanta. So, I mean, he didn't go after the fumble for player safety concerns.
And I understand the player safety concern, but the problem is that, to your point as well, he took hits in games that didn't matter. So if you're looking at player safety, you would think that those would be the games that when they didn't matter per se, that you don't take those hits, but in the Super Bowl, you do. There's a difference. The game matters. It's not just the fact that, it's player safety. You can't do it when you're in a game that you're down 3 scores and you're trying to score a touchdown to get back in a game in a season that you're already 1-4.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a time to destroy yourself over a score. Whereas in the Super Bowl, where you don't know if you're ever going to get another one, that's one where you get the ball. And I mean, I don't even necessarily think he would have gotten hurt if he picks the ball up really quick, just dives on it. He's not going to get hurt that badly.
True.
But it is what it is. But I'm just saying, I wasn't opening the door to talk about necessarily that. I was just saying that when you have a player that is known for a bad play like that, and I mean, if Cam Newton doesn't have that play, more people are talking about how great he was. But that one play diminishes Cam Newton in a lot of people's minds. When he was fantastic, for 5 or 6 seasons in the NFL, he was great. Whereas some quarterbacks have infamous bad plays, or some players do, but they were just bad anyway. So even if you take away that infamous bad play, they're still considered a bad player. Versus Cam Newton, at least he was fantastic for 5 or 6 years. That play doesn't really change that too much in my mind, even though it was a bad play that he should have gotten on the ball. But there's a lot of players that were just bad. Even Tony Romo. I mean, I know that he wasn't an elite quarterback, but he's known as a terrible quarterback per se because of the field goal. He doesn't he doesn't mess up that snap. They don't lose, or whatever. But that's why a lot of times quarterbacks don't hold the ball anymore for that reason. But
not the starters anymore.
I just don't think that that's a reason to say Tony Romo's bad. If you want to say Tony Romo's bad, it should not be that play. It should be his whole career. And I don't necessarily think he was bad overall. I mean, it was great, but that's the argument about stuff like that.
Right, and to your point, I don't think he was bad. I just don't think he was good.
He would. I would say he was a.
It's because he couldn't win.
Eastern Illinois as well. So I mean, he actually overexceeded any expectations that people had for him. He came out of Eastern Illinois.
I would say
Tony Romo to be that good anyway, out of college.
Yeah. I would say
he was just fine. He was just good.
He wouldn't lose. I would say he wouldn't.
You're playing for America's team, so you're expected. And I'm not using this as an excuse. I'm literally jumping into Cowboy fan mind because I know how the mind works. I watch Skip Bayless on an almost regular basis. I know how Cowboy fan mind works. They're stupid, most of them, but I know how it works. You play for America's team. You're supposed to be elite. You're supposed to be the next Roger Staubach. You're supposed to be the next Troy Aikman. You're supposed to be. And it's look at what we did in the 90s. Look how awesome we were back in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. We had 5 Super Bowls. And
To Edwards' point, Romo was probably a top 5 quarterback when he's playing. Romo was close to the top of the NFL in passing yards and touchdowns every year. So I think that Tony Romo was a good quarterback.
I would say him and Dak are pretty similar. I'm going to say I think they're pretty similar quarterbacks in terms of how good they are.
Maybe. I mean, Dak. Here's the thing: Dak runs. Tony Romo does not.
Well, I would say in I don't know, results wise, at least.
Well, yes, I would agree with you there. That's the point I was trying to get to. Tony Romo didn't win the games that he's supposed to win, aka the playoffs. At least Dak has 2 playoff wins. I don't even think Romo has 1. I could be wrong.
To your point about who you're playing,
he has at least
for,
1.
That matters, unfortunately, to a lot of people who you play for, and I don't think it should, because you look at teams like in college, like Blake Sims, is
they both won too. Yeah, they both.
Blake Sims is considered one of the worst quarterbacks in Alabama football history because he blew the game against Ohio State. But that guy had a really good season in the regular season.
If they would have ran the ball with Derrick Henry, they probably would have had a chance of winning the game.
But the point that I'm trying to make is that you're talking about a player on a team that Alabama is now, a team for the last 15 years has been the best team in college football, and then now Georgia, obviously. But you look at the quarterbacks they've had, Tua now, and then you had now Bryce Young, and you've had Jalen Hurts, and you've had McCarron. All these quarterbacks that statistically, and they won, more. Well, Bryce Young didn't get a title, but I'm just saying that Blake Sims is considered bad. If Blake Sims was on a team that was not great and put up the same stats, which he probably wouldn't have put up as good as stats being on a smaller team, he'd be considered great. But since he didn't win it when it mattered, he's considered bad because of who he played for. And that's to your point about Romo and even now Dak. It's like they're put on a higher pedestal when they really shouldn't. Because they're just on a football team. Yeah, I mean, it's the Dallas Cowboys, but to me, I would argue that the NFL is when you should put a quarterback less on a pedestal. Why? Because of the fact that teams are more balanced than they are in college.
Right.
In college, when you're playing on a great team, like that's the whole argument with Stetson Bennett. You have a guy like Stetson Bennett, oh, he's not elite because he's on the best team in college football. He's not having to do that much. Well, again, that's arguable both ways. But in the NFL, at least, you have a lot of teams that are close to each other. There's teams that are better than others, but they're mostly equal. They all have talented players. So I think that putting, quarterbacks on a higher pedestal in the NFL should be less than in college. And when you blow games, it should not be as much on a quarterback than it is in college. Because I understand the Blake Sims argument as well. I get it, but he played for Alabama, so I get it, but it's just some people get more flack, especially quarterbacks, depending on who they play for. And I think that it really should just be the same way across the board no matter what, or at least more leaning that way versus, oh, you're a Cowboys quarterback, you got to be that good, or you're in Alabama. Now that Alabama's what Alabama is, you have to be Bryce Young or Tua, or you're just garbage, Blake Sims. You're horrible. You're the worst quarterback of all time when in his college stats are probably better than 85% of quarterbacks that have ever played in college, but he's just garbage because of who he played for. And he didn't do as much as the others.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that being said, we've kind of went longer than we probably should have. And we've covered all the games. So it's on record. Hopefully I can sweep and keep my 1-game lead over second place.
Do we all have the same picks besides you picking the Bengals?
Let me
I think so.
I believe. Where is it? I have it somewhere. So far, Will, you're 4-2. Jeffrey, you're 4-2. Buckeye Mike and I are 5-1.
Oh,
okay.
So,
All right.
I gotta win something, so I mean, I gotta be careful.
so
So anyway, with that being said, we had fun tonight. I know this was an off night, but
thank you for coming on and watching us.
Thanks, Edward.
And
Thanks for being
if
here.
you want to, check out some awesome content, come on and watch the Young Guns. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay warm.
Thank you for coming over to watch, and hopefully everybody does good. I'm sure since we've basically all picked the same winners, we either will do good or we're all crap and we finally don't know what we're talking about, and we just picked wrong, realistically. But yeah, tune in tomorrow for some college basketball. That should be interesting. Or no, college football news and stuff. It'll be something. But stay tuned and horns down, baby. Ooh, we're back.